any prediction of the future needs to take into account the most important determinant of the future. Our unquenchable, adaptable, and primordial human drive to love. Human drive to love. Human drive to love. The human animal is not built to share. We are basically a species that forms pair bonds, monogamy, mono meaning one, gamete meaning spouse, one spouse. We're also adulterous. In fact, in nature, you often see whenever there is monogamy or pair bonding, you also see adultery. They go hand in hand. So I do think that one of the biggest 21st century issues is going to be the way each one of us decides to balance our drive to commit and our drive for autonomy. I began several years ago to try to understand the human reproductive strategy, human mating habits. I and my colleagues have now put over 100 people into a brain scanner. The first 17 were people who were happily in love. The next were 15 people who had just been rejected in love. And the third group, major group, were people who were in love long term. And we found activity in a tiny little factory near the base of the brain called the ventral tegmental area. And this is a brain region that actually makes dopamine, a natural stimulant, and sprays it to many brain regions that gives you the elation, the focus, the energy, the possessiveness, the motivation, and the craving for another human being. I study poetry. I think it is one of the great artifacts of the human mind. And everywhere in the world people talk about love, and I think of all of the poems, quotes about romantic love, perhaps the very finest was done by Plato in the Symposium when he said, "The God of love lives in a state of need. It is a need. It is a craving. It is a homeostatic imbalance. It is a motivation system that evolved millions of years ago to win life's greatest prize, which was a mating partner." This is the parts of the brain that is the most primitive, the reptilian brain. And romantic love, the VTA is right around there. This is where all the survival mechanisms are orchestrated. Thirst and hunger and romantic love. It's as powerful as thirst and hunger. It lies right next to a brain region linked with the sex drive. It's not in the same area. The sex drive really emanates from the hypothalamus, but it's right next door. And I think what happens is the sex drive evolves to get you out there looking for a whole range of partners. I mean, you can have sex with somebody you're certainly not in love with. You can think about sex when you're driving along in your car, reading a magazine, whatever. And I think the sex drive evolved to get you out there looking for a range of partners. And I think romantic love evolved to enable you to focus that mating energy on just one person at a time. The third brain system is attachment, is higher up in the brain, and I think together these three brain systems orchestrate all of the nuances of all of the forms of love that we have for our children, for an idea even, for the cat or the dog, and certainly for a partner. I've come to believe that we've evolved these three different brain systems for mating and reproduction, and they all are connected to each other. When you fall madly in love with somebody, dopamine goes up in the brain, that triggers the testosterone system, and all of a sudden, every single thing he or she does is cute, is sexy, is something that appeals to you. The reverse can be true too. You can have casual sex with somebody, and indeed, any kind of stimulation of the genitals will drive up the dopamine system, and you can fall in love with them. Also, with orgasm, you can drive up oxytocin and vasopressin and trigger feelings of attachment. So casual sex is not casual. Unless you're so drunk you can't remember it, it's not casual. Things are happening in the brain. the definition of addiction. I've long thought that romantic love was an addiction, a perfectly wonderful addiction when it's going well, and a perfectly horrible addiction when it's going poorly. And so after doing my first brain study, which was very popular in the press, I did a second one on rejection and love. It's much more important to me. And in fact, my hypothesis was that this really was an addiction. I put them in the machine, and this is what I was looking for. Activity in a tiny little factory called the nucleus accumbens. It's a brain region that becomes activated in every single addiction. This whole reward system, the ventral tegmental area, the nucleus accumbens, and this whole brain system for wanting became activated among these people who had been rejected in love. And in fact, the same brain system becomes activated when you are craving cocaine, heroin, amphetamines, food, gambling, sex, all of the non-substance addictions, etc. We've proven it in the brain that this is an addiction. It would be appropriate to treat it as an addiction. You know, I was just trying to think as I was preparing for this, how many people are in jail for drinking too much? You know, how many people are in jail for eating too much? I think that George Bernard Shaw summed it up, and he said, when we want to read of the deeds of love, whither do we turn? To the murder column. We're talking about one of the most powerful addictions the human animal has ever experienced. And the bottom line is just about everybody has experienced it at some point. I mean, nobody gets out of love alive. We all get screwed at some point, that's for sure.